supply chainers, wherever you are in the world. This is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey with you today. Are you ready? Let's talk supply chain.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thoughts and Coffee from Let's Talk Supply Chain and Emerge. Emerge is proud to partner with Thoughts and Coffee to elevate our combined focus on empowering and growing meaningful relationships in the freight industry. The first and only freight-specific RFP platform, Emerge is reinventing freight procurement by offering solutions that enhance the spot and contract procurement process, enabling shippers to make the most strategic decisions possible, saving invaluable time and enhancing productivity. Learn more at emergemarket.com/thoughtsandcoffee. So I'm filling in for Sarah Barnes-Humphrey today. My name is Audrey Ross. I'm here in gray and rainy Toronto. I'm a import and export compliance manager at Orchard Custom Beauty. We're an award-winning business-to-business private labeling company that specializes in cosmetics, beauty tools, and bath accessories. And so I run sort of the logistics, international trade piece of that business. So that's a little bit about me. We've got a very special guest today, Amani Radman, who I'll tell you more about in a moment. But first, let's talk about what's going on with Let's Talk Supply Chain. So we've got our episode of the week, which is episode 259 on the podcast. And in case you missed it, we had the event No Bullshipping with Hope White. That was last Friday. And then upcoming on Thursday, April 28th, so that's 2 days from now, 12:30 Eastern Time, Coming in Hot with Abby Baird. And she's going to be talking about the power and process of mentorship. Another event coming up, Going Global, How and When to Take Your Business to the World Market, sponsored by Nucleus. That's on May 25th at 12 p.m. Eastern. And of course, next Tuesday, you can catch Thoughts and Coffee again with Sarah Wubiak and me. We've also want to shout out a super huge thank you. Let's Talk Supply Chain just hit 50,000 LinkedIn followers. So thanks to everyone who follows along and who shares it and kind of refers Let's Talk Supply Chain to all of their friends and colleagues. And I think that's everything for what's happening with Let's Talk Supply Chain. There's always a lot going on. So make sure if you aren't already following, you've got to get onto that Let's Talk Supply Chain page here on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, and on YouTube. All right, so let's bring up our guest today, Amani Radman.
Hello. Hi, how are you?
Great. I'm so excited to be here with you.
I know.
So why don't you tell us a little bit where you are right now, a little bit about yourself, and anything else we should know.
Hi, my name is Amani Radman. I am currently in Minnesota, and it's almost negative. Feels like almost negative. I am a co-founder and owner of Malao Logistics, a transportation brokerage company, small owned here in Minnesota. We have also an office in Ohio. We do LTL full truck. I've been in the industry for 10 years, so I'm super excited to come back and do something for the community. So I'm super excited to be here with you too. Yay. My new friend.
So we'll tell the audience that you and I met at TPM 2022, so last month in March, at the beginning of March, and sort of it's a large conference. There was a lot of people, and you were I think it was DC who sort of introduced us. You were wandering around with DC and then Lisa from Bloom. And so we ended up having a whole ladies in supply chain lunch together, and it was fantastic. So
we were like a little pack in there, like moving around and having lunches. And it was just amazing to be around such a beautiful, powerful supply chain, woman in supply chain for sure.
Yeah, it was great. So tell us a little bit more about Malao.
So Malao, so I started Malao Logistics in 2019 with the purpose of coming back and bringing, expertise to the industry. So I've been 10 years in the industry, and I have a background in supply chain. I have a bachelor's in supply chain out of Portland State University. And so I've worked shippers, for many years, then did the brokerage, had a carrier. Now it's a broker. So I've touched every side of the supply chain. And what's the best way to really bring solution to your customers and everybody when you've touched it and lived it and know their struggles, right? So now we're coming back strong, and we have an amazing team and my partners that we just want to come and really make an impact. And especially since COVID, it's very important that we stay connected and give the small people a chance to really show, because I think we'll be able to give you more of a customized solution and really help you out during the tough times. So I'm super excited.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so we've got everybody's sort of pitching where they're coming in from. So we've got Samuel from Panama. I know I saw Davin earlier, so he's from outside of Toronto.
Yes.
Who else is here?
Andrea is here. Andrea is out of Long Beach, so she's kind of dealing with sports. Yes, my other new friend.
Yeah, I know, it was such a great call. It was like, it was so great to be back and just sort of interacting with people, and the connections I think we all made. Like, I keep hearing it's like, I've got this huge to-do list. One, it's like, I've got to get in touch with you. I've got it. Then there's this person and this person. It's like, and it's exciting to kind of, make these new connections and sort of realize, some of the options that are out there that maybe you didn't realize, because we've all been sort of head down in this very stressful, busy supply chain. And so it was kind of nice to have that break and to be like, oh, okay, wait a second. I don't have to kind of, struggle with this. It's like someone does this, or someone focuses on the port congestion, the drayage, the transportation movement. So yeah.
I totally agree. And the best part out of all of it to come together was, it brought everybody together, and everybody was open to, what do we need to do to prepare ourselves if something like this happens to us again, right? So there was more of just a bonding, and there was no, there was no clear of, he was a VP or you're just an assistant, or there was, you're a small carrier versus big carrier. It was just like, we need to come together because COVID brought people together that normally would never come together, right?
And there's such a lack of, I think we're starting to see, through COVID, but I think a little bit before too, people are a little less, people are competitive, but it's a little less like cutthroat, and it's a little bit more like, we're doing our thing and we want to do it well, but it doesn't mean that we have to like elbow out somebody else. I really think people are, maybe they're just kind of staying in what they're doing. But I think there's other people who are like, let's try to build this community. Let's try to think a little bit more broadly about what's happening, because if I don't make it and if they don't make it, like, how can we work together so we're all kind of benefiting and doing better?
Yes. Yeah. And I think it's like working, having your own business and be able to really implement that, right? So really creating these technologies and, being like a woman-owned, minority-owned, be able to give, that forefront. It's like, hey, if being representations that more women should come in the supply chain, and there's open hand to receiving it and really supporting. So I'm super excited for the years to come. I know people are just kind of questioning of what's happening in the supply chain, but this sometimes life has to turn around for you to make changes in your corporation. So I'm hoping that our leaders are listening and making changes and just really thinking outside the box. It's really that time for sure.
It's definitely time. Let's pop into our next thing that we're going to talk about is, so Sarah Barnes Humphrey does a post every Sunday, and it's her sort of thoughts and coffee. It's usually around sort of what she's thinking, what she's been going through, and what I find is it usually touches on something that I've been thinking about or that I needed to read. So on her Sunday post, it was about change. Right? There's always time to change. And she included a quote from a thought leader named Adam Grant. And Adam Grant said, the saddest kind of cynicism is denying that people can change. You're not the exact same person as 10 years ago. Your opinions, habits, and values have evolved. Others have too. A vital part of believing in people is seeing their potential for growth. And she sort of her comments are kind of, no matter how many mistakes you've made in the past, there's time to change. Part of believing in people is believing that we have the ability to learn and grow and become better. And so no matter where we are, there's time to change. So and then it asks the question, have you changed over the years? And so there's a number of sort of comments around, people kind of pitching in. Have they changed? What's been different? So would you say over the last, say, I don't know, maybe 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, how have you changed? Do you think that there's a capacity for people to change?
Change is the most beautiful thing you could do for yourself. I
Yeah.
think, changing every moment, like as soon as you walk out of this call, to make changes in your life, because evolvement is like one of the part of humanity, right? So we always continuously evolving. And even when we feel stuck, just to keep moving and just, even if it's baby steps. So yes, I don't even think I'm, this last night I've changed from today, but just, I'm really always trying to be better, a better version of me, become a better version, be a better friend, a better coworker, a better daughter, a better mother. So yes, don't get stuck in the moment. Push yourself and change and do it for you. Don't do it for anybody else.
Yeah, I think what I thought, when I was younger was that change was big. It was always something just wholly transformational. And I really struggled to understand, for me, that it was like all the little decisions that I make in the day add up. So if I'm just sort of being not thinking, I'll say yes to a bunch of things, and then it's like, why did I say yes to this? How does this get me to this place? And yeah, when I have this in mind, like, okay, I want to be a sort of better friend, I want to be a more well-organized person, or that kind of thing. It's like, well, okay, what did you do today that kind of propelled me to that? And I really thought it was like, oh, just all of a sudden I wake up and like this thing about my life has changed because I said it was going to change. And it's like, no, it's all those tiny little things that I do that really make that happen.
Yeah, and I think it's like your subconscious mind, right? So it's like programmed in your mind that, and you have these habits of every day. So to really break that is really hard for us, right? But I think we're really tough on ourselves, and we expect so much of each other and of yourself that you don't give yourself a break. And when you don't make the change that you said you were, the New Year resolution that everybody does in the beginning of the year, and then I fall off when it hits February. I'm just like, okay, I'll try next year.
Like January 5th, I'm like, oh, well, I guess that didn't happen. So.
But I've learned the biggest journey from COVID is, small steps, even just, if exercising is what you want to do, just getting out and, outdoor is a step, right? Yeah. Don't be harsh on yourself. I think we are the most, harsh on ourselves. We are the biggest critics of our own lives. And so don't be hard on yourself. Make the change. And change is beautiful, because once you get into that change mode, you're like, okay, what else can I change? You just what can I add to this? Yes, and become a good leader, and you'll help your employees, be open to change, because our leaders need to be an example. And one of the things for Malao Logistics is, of the leaders and the owners of this company, is we want to be leaders for the new generations that are coming in supply chain, and show them that, hey, there's no, good time, perfect time. It's just the time right now. So just do it.
Just do it. And you believe in them. And I think that makes a difference. And we have, I've had, a longtime manager who, they believe in me. Yes. They believe in me, right? And that makes a difference. They believe that it's like, like this didn't do well, or, I'm not quite 100% on that, but it's like they believe that I can,
But I think the leaders that have really made impact in my career, during all the companies I've worked with, are the leaders that really believed in me as soon as I walked through that door. Yeah. And I think that is the leader that I want to be, that my employees, and I have team all the way in Kenya, and I want to say hi to my team in Kenya, and to say, I don't care where in the world you are, you can make an impact anywhere. And so Malao Logistics went to Kenya, and we built a whole team there. And so, hey, anything is possible. And
anything.
And I always say, leaders, please lead by example. Lead by example, because we're all watching you.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love that. So our next little thing that we do, I'm not segueing into these very well, but our next little step
You're
is to do.
natural. What are you talking about?
We're going to talk about the
Sarah can take more vacations now.
So we've got our 3 articles. Of course, it's the fastest 30 minutes in supply chain. Sarah and I always say this. We get to the end and we turn and we're like, oh my gosh, this just blew by.
Yeah.
But we do have articles we want to talk about. And we focused this week on trucking and transportation because, of course, we have a guest who's so knowledgeable in that area. So I think we're talking about the trucking industry will be in trouble if demand drops to pre-COVID levels. So spot rates are up, operating expenses are up, and sort of what does this mean? And they've included sort of some charts and graphs around sort of this industry. And I don't think, it goes into sort of the driver wages, sort of driver retention. What did you think about this article?
This article really hits point of what we went through, right? Any side of the supply chain, right? The trucking industry, if we go back to pre-COVID, well, the damage that has been done is not going back, right? So fuel is up, expenses for carriers are up. Everything is up right now. So if we go pre-COVID, what's going to happen is it's going to really impact these small carriers that are really going to fall behind. And the shippers are not really, accounting for those things, right? Right now, gas is $7 in California. But spot rates is $2.50. I mean, how are they? And then lease trucks. So it's a yes. This COVID could really, if we want to go back, it's going to really destroy a lot of the carriers and the supply chain in general, for sure.
Yeah, and it looks like it can be hard to get. We saw during the pandemic that production of new cars and trucks was really sort of affected by these chip shortages and input shortages. So the actual manufacturing of the equipment and of the trucks themselves was a real challenge. And so, people can see that there's an increased demand for trucks and deliveries, but they were struggling to get trucks. Did you find that it was like getting the equipment itself was a real challenge?
Yeah, so I actually owned a carrier during that time, and we decided, well, we're not spending double on a carrier. So what the problem was happening, carriers were coming in and thinking like, this is the worst, I don't think it's ever going to get better. So I will double. So people were buying trucks at a double price, and then the expenses wasn't matching, right? So what's happening now, truckers are owning an older truck, but then still maintaining the service level and expecting service level from COVID. So yes, I think the companies that really made great impact was they were leasing trucks out. So they were charging double on leasing trucks, and we were I leased 7 trucks over the year, and it was hard. It was hard with the impact. So now if you have a leased truck and you're back to pre-COVID, your expenses are way up there. So there's no way you're going to be able to survive, for sure. And then the carriers, the drivers, right? Shortage and all of that stuff that's happening.
Yeah. It just seems like it's a there's a lot of costs involved, and then there's a lot of risk. And so I think it's a really challenging sector for people, especially sort of I'm outside looking in on that.
And because there's such a big disconnect, right, between the brokerage, carriers, and shippers, right? Yeah. So shippers not understanding what's happening, and shippers are right now just really focused getting their product out of Long Beach and all of that, right? So they're not even worried about how it's going to get there, but these are the ones that we do have to worry about, for sure.
Yeah. That was a good article, and we'll drop all the per usual. We'll drop all the links to the articles in the chat so everyone can follow them along. So next up is the growth hindered by supply chain disruptions, capacity constraints, inflation, logistical challenges, and labor shortages. So some of what we were just talking about. But it's talking about growth in February's that company. Growth in February was held back, even though these are companies that are outside the manufacturing sector. they were affected by the supply chain disruptions and labor shortages. So this is an article that sort of goes into some feedback and panel of business executives or respondents on how their own companies were doing in February compared to January. And these are industries that are other than manufacturing. So it's like agriculture, construction, to professional scientific services. And so this is kind of looking into sort of what these comments were. So let's look at, say, like educational services, which is really sort of outside of what we do. But they were talking about inflation, so it's contributing to budget restraints. They've hit supply chain issues and they're having labor shortages. What are some of the ones that stood out for you?
I mean, it was crazy, like entertainment, right? So
Yeah.
it was like, I was like, oh yeah, for sure, because there was no entertainment.
There was no entertainment, and then all of a sudden there was.
So that was like my biggest one that I've noticed. But everybody. So your personal life was hit. So what makes you think your career is not going to get hit? So everything got hit, right? So most of the companies really realized that a lot of their supplies were getting had to pay more, right? So they couldn't really upheld some of the SKU levels, right? And so products was couldn't get it from from their suppliers, and some of the suppliers were not able to deliver because they couldn't get it also from the materials perspective. So there was this down supply chain from beginning to end, where there was somebody needed to get it from somebody else, and so it wasn't really flowing through, and growth was not even, I think, an option at this point. It was just survival mode. Companies were just like, we need to be able to stay open after COVID. I think so. It was a big lesson. But the way Andrea just said in the comment is, it's really changing out your portfolios at each level of any company.
Yeah. I think Andrea Kay has a great comment too, right? She talks about recession reactive. So I guess that there's difficulties, or it's an industry that's very affected by the economic conditions. So the expectation that she's put forward is that the industry will constrict again sort of with this new economic change. And Andrea's suggestion is to sort of diversify your portfolio. I think from a transport, if you're offering it, you want to be offering maybe more than transportation, or maybe focusing on what you do really well, or ways that you can stand out, either by focusing on the sustainability and environmentalism piece that people really want to see transition to, or focusing on that customer service. I think we've all been very fatigued and disorganized the last, especially sort of coming, as things change. And so if you're focusing, reorganize yourself to focus on that customer service, and that aspect of it to make yourself stand out. So that's a great comment, Andrea. Yes, Rhonda, everything was impacted during COVID. I don't even think we know how to really process what we've been through and what we're going to go through too. And then of course there hasn't been, sort of an ease on some of the things that are happening globally either, as we can see sort of across into Ukraine and other conflict areas. So we've just lost our guest, but I'm sure she either will pop back in. There we are.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I lost you.
I know, technical stuff. Computers. So I was just sort of wrapping up that article, and we'll go into our last one, which I think has some really juicy details, and we can go into some things I'm curious to hear your thoughts on. So our last article today, we're talking about, the title is A Forecast of the Trucking Crisis as we head into 2022, and this is by Forbes.
Yeah, so the forecast, right? So again, the portfolio, right? The companies really have to make change. And so right now, what's going to happen with a lot of the carrier is, especially small carriers, that there's a lot of new carriers that have started, right? So a lot of MCs have been created during this pandemic. And so a lot of the companies going to have to change the way they do business and really create new portfolios for themselves, really be a streamlined process where there's technology. So a lot of the carriers don't invest in technology, right?
Right.
Especially small fleet owner operators. They don't have a TMS system or technology system. So a lot of the shippers don't really want to work with them for that reasons, right? So it's going to be important. So Malawi Logistics is going to spend a lot of time to making sure that we able to touch the technology from beginning to end to provide those solutions. So yes,
Yeah.
it's going to be critical for the carriers to really step up, and also the driver shortage, Andre. Like it's really really bad. So shippers have to be aware of what the drivers are going through, right, when they are
Yeah.
going through these loads, and really being mindful of all the work, this long distance that they've really committed to during COVID, right? And really put their lives at risk. And I think carriers need to really, spend more time with their drivers and provide that stability for them, and pay them, the pay, and create, a flexible way of living so they can really stick with them. Because right now, drivers are just it's barely to find any, and we've
Yeah.
seen that struggle, right? So Malawi Logistics is really making sure that our drivers are like a family to us, and that we adopt them. So I basically adopt drivers to make sure that I understand who they are, who their families are, so that way when they're on the road, we can relate to them, right?
Yeah.
And so that way they're going to go above and beyond when things go tough. But if you just treat them so badly, then tomorrow when things get tough, you expect them to all come running for you. That's not going to happen, right? So I think it's very important that we prepare ourselves moving forward, and really invest. And and the leaders in shippers, be open to give these opportunities to to us small, and because we're able to really come and support, and provide these solutions for you, but then also talk to us so we understand what you're going through, and then we can share with you what's happening in the industry, because they don't really know. I've said at the shipper levels before, we really didn't know. We
Yeah.
just assumed, can you just go pick it up 10 minutes before, and just expect you to just jump and go.
And I think that's the key. That's going to be the difference, is that the working conditions, because the pay is the one thing, like, and everybody hears it's like, oh, it's good pay, it's six-figure pay, just increase the pay. And you're like, think about what the conditions are for people, especially doing the long haul. Do they have, with COVID, there was nowhere for them to stop. All of a sudden things shut down. So are you thinking about what's going on in the community of transportation? Are you thinking about those truck stops? Are you thinking about what amenities they have along the road, what amenities they have in the truck? And like, I really appreciate what you said about, you know, listening and connecting with your employees. Like, how are you going to engage with them? Because that'll make the difference. That always makes a difference. It's how I work better, is because I feel
Yes.
engaged. I feel connected with what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing because I get that acknowledgement. I get that communication. I feel like, my team, listens, and we work together. And I think in this industry, it's traditionally been like, oh, they just go in a truck and like they work by themselves. You're like, they're not working by themselves. Just because they're not sort of in front of you and they're on the road, you don't want to isolate them further, right? You want to kind of keep that feedback and connection going.
Yeah, and then think of this too, right? Remember when things were perfect, and nobody was paying much for ocean. Ocean carriers were really being downgraded. Nobody wanted to work with them. And now it's like, oh, hey, do you remember me? And they're like, no, we don't remember you.
You know?
I don't want to work with you, because the time that we were looking to to partner up with you, you were not interested. And now guess what? So that's exactly what's going to happen with the carriers when you don't step aside from your world and bring them in. When is the last time we had drivers coming to the shipper and
Yeah.
come spend the day there? And just see what the operations looks like there. I don't even
Mhm.
think there, because the brokers are usually in the middle. But I always recommend, if there's a way, opportunities for shippers to really get to know the world of the carriers, they will understand when they're doing the budgeting and they're planning and the order processing flow, that what's coming down the pipeline, and they can really prepare for that. So leaders, if you're a shipper and you really want to people to come along for you when the tough times and you need things to be shipped overnight and just like 2 minutes before, and you don't want to get charged 20 times more, it's going to be the times that you step aside and just really bring them in and listen to them. Because
Yeah.
you know how many accidents are happening right now? People are driving in the snow for you, in ice, they're not able to come home to spend time
Yeah.
with their families. I mean, guys, let's just be very, and so for me, my drivers, I tell them, you've worked too much this week. You need to go and take some time off. And they're like, huh? And
Yeah.
and they're owner operators. They don't, I make money by making sure that they're on the road, but
Yeah.
it's the humanity in me. I can't do that. I wouldn't want somebody to do that for me. So, hey, your
Yeah.
daughter's birthday, go home. Oh my God, you're sending me home?
Yeah.
Guess what? Tomorrow when I call him at 3 a.m, he's gonna be like, I'm ready. Where do you want me
Ready
to
to
go?
Yeah. Yeah. It makes all the difference. So I think that's a great place for us to kind of course, our 30 minutes is over.
Yes.
It's so fast.
Well, yes.
So thank you so much, Amani, for joining us today. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. And we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Thank you, guys. Take care. Have an amazing day.